What is going on, Diablo fans? Dobrunsky here, and today's video is just going to be a quick overview of patch 2.6, the finalized patch notes. Not going to read everything word for word because I'll have the full blog post linked in the description below, but essentially the first major point here is that the ladder is going to be starting on February the 16th at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, with the actual patch notes going live the previous day. So if you want to mess around in Hero Editor, try maybe a dual Mosaic wielding martial arts assassin and get a feel for the build before you spend all that time grinding to get that gear, the 15th will be the day to try that when the actual patch goes live. Now, if you're wondering how the shared stash works with transferring characters to non-ladder, it's explained in this blog post. Once Season 2 ends and Season 3 officially begins, you will receive 3 new tabs that are going to be withdraw-only tabs, which is kind of self-explanatory. You can only withdraw that item and then pull it onto your non-ladder character. And you have the entire duration of Season 3 to withdraw those important items. If you guys wait till Season 4, it'll be too late, and again, it's covered in this little blurb here. Make sure that at some point during Season 3, any of your important rune words or rare items or anything that you have that's very valuable, you withdraw them and put them on the personal stash of your non-ladder characters. So as far as the updates to the rune words, the devs have listened to a lot of the feedback, not everything, and again, these rune words aren't necessarily massive meta shifting rune words, but at least they've been improved somewhat to be a little bit more useful. With the first major update being the new rune word Cure receiving a level 1 cleansing aura when equipped, and then reducing the poison length by 25%, so going from 75 to 50% poison length reduced. Again, not super powerful, but I could maybe see myself early on, potentially like if I was playing with a Blizzard Sorceress in Ancient Tunnels, maybe having an Act 1 Rogue with an Insight Bow, and then having a Cure Helmet to get some cleansing aura support to deal with poison damage from the zombies in that area. Again, very specific niche case use, not super exciting, but it definitely is an improvement. So the next rumored to receive a little bit of an update is Hearth. It gets Cannot Be Frozen. This is, I think, useful for some characters on playthroughs. Shale, Isle, Thal, and getting a source that cannot be frozen instead of waiting to make Rhyme is interesting and will sort of shift the early playthrough meta. So it's definitely more useful, but is it super exciting? Not really. I think that most melee characters will probably gravitate towards Bulwark just because of that damage reduction, life leech, and everything is just too valuable, but maybe a ranged character might use Hearth early on in a playthrough. So the next rumor to receive some updates is Hustle. Now this can be rolled in body armors or weapons, no, all weapons, but it has been changed quite a bit. And the body armor was what needed the most work in my opinion, at least from the first iteration that we saw, and the armor has been buffed. So the faster run walk has been increased from 50% to 65, increased attack speed has been doubled from 20% to 40, and they added +6 to evade. This is a very interesting mechanic. Could it potentially increase mercenary survivability? We'll see. Will it replace treachery? I don't really know if evade is that valuable, but combining evade, the faster run walk, increased attack speed, and 10 all res, it at least makes it, in my opinion, a viable budget choice. Now the weapon has also received a nerf and 2 buffs at the same time. So they decreased that level 9 burst of speed on striking to level 1. I never really had too much of a problem with level 9 because 5% chance to cast on striking is not going to go up very frequently, but they decided to nerf this and replace it or substitute with a level 1 fanaticism aura. That's very interesting for a budget melee character on a playthrough. Shale, Ko, and Eld getting a level 1 fanaticism aura, or potentially an Act 5 mercenary, just throwing on like Lawbringer and Hustle. That's a combination that's going to give you crowd control with Sanctuary, Decrep procs, and a fanaticism aura. So very interesting. And then they increased the ED from 130 to 150, all the way up to 180 to 200. So Hustle is now, in my opinion, a pretty solid budget melee rumored for a weapon. Is it meta shifting? No, but it's definitely a very viable choice now on an early playthrough. Out of all the rumors that have been introduced into patch 2.6, Mosaic is definitely the most interesting, at least it is in my opinion, and that's because it introduced a new mechanic for the assassin, which will, in my opinion, incentivize more people to play the martial arts assassin. So they introduced this mechanic of not consuming finishing charges, but they bumped it up from 25% to 50%. So you can now dual wield these claws and have a 100% chance to not consume a charge. But then on top of that, they've added this new mechanic here that when a finisher is executed using this mechanic, it now refreshes the expiration timer on the stack. So this means you can run around and stack up Blades of Ice, Claws of Thunder, Phoenix Strike, and have all 3 charges active. And as long as you can teleport or Dragon Flight and reposition and attack again in 15 seconds before that duration expires, you will be able to constantly sustain these charges for an entire Chaos Sanctuary run, for example. So I think a lot of people are going to slam the martial arts assassin. They added 7% lifesteal, as well as 8 to 15% cold damage, 8 to 15% lightning damage, and 8 to 15% fire skill damage. I'm not entirely sure if this mechanic applies to Phoenix Strike. Again, I have to test this the day before the patch. Quick update, guys. The devs did address in the quality life and bug section, which I'll get to shortly, did fix a bug associated with plus skill damage and Phoenix Strike. So the two will actually pair together with Mosaic. I thought that it didn't, but again, I'm not a huge martial arts guy, so just let me know in the comment section below whether or not that plus damage actually applies. If it does, that is, again, another pretty big buff. If you dual wield these, you could have 16 to 30% plus damage for fire, cold, and lightning. So pretty interesting buffs for the assassin all around. And finally, we wrap up the rumored changes with Metamorphosis. It's received some small tweaks. They've upped the bonus to attack rating from 20% to 30%, and they've changed it so that the crushing blow no longer is attached to Mark of the Bear. Decent changes, although the biggest issue that I have with this rumored is if they really wanted it to excel, is just to allow the user of this rumored to directly transform from werewolf to werebear and then werebear back to werewolf. It'll make the applying of the Mark of the Wolf and Mark of the Bear a lot easier to maintain and just make it a little bit less clunky. You don't necessarily want to be like in wolf form and then shapeshift to druid and then back to bear to get a mark, then go back to druid, then to go back to being a fury werewolf. Like, it's just very clunky. That's the only thing that I wish that they added in addition to this rumored. Although, with that being said, if your Mark of the Bear does run out, it's not the end of the world. You can just stay in wolf form, continue attack, wait for a break, and then shapeshift to get Mark of the Bear again. But again, not really interesting changes for Metamorphosis, but I just really wish they added that direct transform from wolf to bear just using this rumored. It's really the only thing it's missing in my opinion. There's also a very quick confirmation that all of the new rumors that were introduced into patch 2.4, so Flickering Flame, Mist, Obsession, Pattern, Plague, Unbending Will, and Wisdom, can now be rolled in non-ladder. So that's good for those that maybe accidentally burned to Chamrune. You can now roll Plague and non-ladder, so that's a nice quality of life update. And then in terms of Terror Zones, they wanted to, I guess, to quote them, spice things up. So Terror Zones are now available for offline players. So this is something that I wasn't necessarily like really pushing for. I kind of would have liked to see the devs maybe introduce other new exciting mechanics, but at least the dedicated single player community can now experience Terror Zones, so that definitely is a plus. And then in addition to that, they did add some new areas. So you can see here, Underground Passage, Black Marsh, The Hole, Barracks, Ancient Tunnels, the Great Marsh. They removed the Kuras Sewers. They added the Frigid Highlands, Drifter Cavern, and Pit of Archeron to all of the existing Terror Zones. So again, you can reference this blog post in the description below. But I guess quality of life updates and improvements to Terror Zones overall, and also introducing the single player. So welcome quality of life changes in my opinion. So wrapping up this blog post, there is a laundry list of quality of life and bug updates, which there's 3 very exciting ones here. I'm not going to cover every single one, but the first major one here, the Assassin's Trap skills now benefit from negative enemy resistance. So you can now wield Crescent Moon, Griffins, Fire-Faceted Swords, and Phoenix to buff up Lightning Sentry and Wake of Fire. That's very exciting. Again, I'm going to have to test this. Will it push a Trapsin above a Nova Sorceress? Potentially, because you could get upwards of, I think, like what, negative 50 enemy res. So if you have 5 Lightning Sentries all stacked on one another and you're doing 1 to 50k damage with an additional negative 50% enemy lightning resistance, that could be very powerful. So again, we'll have to test that out. They fixed an issue with Strafe. It wasn't doing the previous balance change damage. So again, for those that are a big fan of the Boson, this will be a pretty significant buff. And then finally, they addressed Thunder Charms and Cold Mastery. So Cold Mastery now applies at 1/5 effectiveness after immunity is broken. This is interesting for 2 reasons. One is it definitely nerfs the Blizzard Sorceress a little bit, so she's not quite as powerful with the Cold Thunder Charm as what she was in the previous patch, but it also could potentially, maybe for the first time ever, shift Cold Sorceresses to using Doom and maybe like a Twin Axe, because you get $2 skills and then a massive amount of negative cold res, which will apply at full effectiveness to monsters that have been sundered with a Cold Thunder Charm. So I definitely think potentially we could see some meta shifting changes with the Cold Sorceress in terms of the weapon that she uses. And then finally, I should actually mention that there's, I guess, 4 significant changes. They fixed an underlying issue that caused shockwave damage on the Druid. It just did more damage than it was supposed to. I think it did upwards of almost 10k damage with like a hidden unintended change. It's now purely just a crowd control skill. But anyways, guys, that wraps up my quick overview of patch 2.6. Let me know in the comment section below if you guys are excited, if you're skipping ladder, if you wish they went further, or maybe if you plan on playing the martial arts assassin. Just let me know in the comment section below what you guys think. Other than that, hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, if you could throw a like on it, that'd be great. And I'll catch you guys on my next video or live stream. Peace out.
Addicted to the rush, never meant to fall. we already lost. Addicted to the rush.